Hello mate, welcome back. In this video we are going to be starting to build our environment. Before I get started, a huge thank you to everyone for subscribing and hitting the notification icon, that really helps me out. And an even bigger thank you to my members and patrons, your names will be running across the bottom of the screen at the end of the video. So I'm just going to create one environment in this video, but you guys are probably going to want to create quite a few more than that, as your game's probably going to have several. I'll probably have 2 or 3 in this tutorial series, but I'm only going to create one for this video just so you can sort of see the process. So for me, I always start off with adding a floor somewhere in the region of probably about 5 or 6 meters across. It's just a simple plane, and this really is just a very rudimentary, a very basic way of creating an environment. You could do something snazzy and indoors, you could do something snazzy and outdoors. It really depends on what you want to achieve. Once I've got the floor set out, the first thing that you want to do, or the first thing that I will do, is apply a shader. For this one, I'm going to just give it some kind of tile floor. So I'm searching through my content library for tile shaders till I find something that I like the look of. Now I'm going to go with, well, make sure we've got the surface selected in the scene. Yeah, with this textural looking shader. Now if we zoom out, we can see that we need to change the tiling on that slightly. So that's only 4 tiles. And we can do that by changing the settings in the surface tab. Or if you're using shaders provided by a third-party vendor, they normally have some kind of tiling option actually in there. And then if we were to switch over to NVIDIA iRay mode now, we can actually see our tiled surface. So this is going to be not a indoor, this is more going to be a kind of a plaza thing. I'm thinking maybe an outdoor kind of seating area. I'm going to turn off the selectability of the floor because I no longer need to be able to actually touch that. I'm going to just jump back into texture shaded mode just so that we can see what we're doing a little bit better. So the first thing that I want to add to my environment is going to be some kind of bench. So again, searching through my content library for a bench, then once the options appear I can have a look and see which one I want to do. Now this is going to be a fairly kind of modern looking area, so I don't want it to be too old looking. This is a fairly modern looking bench. It is quite large, it has to be said, but this is only a 6 by 6 meter area, so I'm going to have to put lots of trees and hedgerows in the background just to isolate off this area. But this is our bench anyway. Now next thing I'm going to want is some kind of bin or trash can, so let's just search for trash can and see what comes back, because these days very rarely will you have a seating area without a trash can. Let's try this one. That's a bit too messy, a bit too old. We want something that looks a little bit more clean, not a grungy shot. It's going to be this one probably work quite nicely. Yeah, that looks better. And then we can put that at the end of the bench like so. Now we're going to want to put some kind of hedgerow in the background to make this look like a plaza, so I'm going to search for hedgerow. Let's just search for hedge and see what about. There we go, we've got some hedge to work for. Let's see. Go with this one. That one looks kind of cool. Then we're going to slide this off into the background. We might need to overlap our edges slightly. The beauty of doing what I'm doing here is I'm going to use an HDRI that has grass and trees in the background, so it hasn't necessarily got to be perfect. However, under this circumstance, I do think I need to overlap the, see, I've turned off the, there we go. A bit too hard to grab because it's got lots of slats in it. Okay, and then we can just bring this in and down so that it's actually covering, we want it to be covering the seam between the HDRI and the floor so that it helps us tell the illusion. And we can just drag that across there, and then if we want to, we can go to create. I want to create 4 or 5 nodes of this. So create new node instances, and we'll just go with 5. Hit accept. And there we go. And then we've got all of these to play with, and they haven't got to all be exactly the same position. We can mess around with them a little bit. But ultimately, what we want to achieve is the effect of not being able to see the seam on the edge of the floor. We can have another one kind of there. In fact, what I might do is rotate this one 90 degrees. Either way, really. Put that to -90, and then we can bring this along so that it's parallel with the floor there. We also wanted to start thinking about our camera position for our scene. Now, because of the nature of this shot, I really want a camera to be quite close to the scene so that we can't see the seams in the floor. But I don't necessarily want it to be there. This one might be better off being at some kind of angle like this. Perhaps really low down against the floor, just to give us some wiggle room for adding new objects, but this is kind of a nice little shot. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add my camera here, and then I'm also going to go into my render settings and change my environment to the HDRI that I want to use. You can use whatever HDRI you really want here. Again, there's no real mileage in copying exactly what I'm doing for this one. Make the scenes in your game your own to play with. Now, theoretically, if I were to jump into NVIDIA IRA mode and switch to the camera, you can now get a rough idea of how this is going to start coming together. Now we need to turn on Draw HDRI. So as you can see, we've got the seam is there. It's not perfect. And the light is coming from behind, which is okay, it's not terrible. This one does need to come down a smidge. There's no getting around that. Move it down, 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 down. Down, arguably down a little bit more. Forwards a little bit more, it seems. There we go. So again, we're not completely concealing it, but we're making it look a lot more realistic. And this side here, we can either add another path or we can just fill it up with hedgerows. Again, this could be a nice shady little nook that people sit in. I think it's going back to texture shaded, and then I can jump out of the camera. Remember to leave the camera before you do anything else. The position of your main camera, once you've set it and started using it for your renders, you have to keep the same. Otherwise, you're going to run into all kinds of different problems later on. Let's rotate this by 90 degrees and slide this along. The thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put this one here, and then I'm going to rotate this one by 90 degrees as well. And I'm going to bring this one along, but I'm going to leave a gap like so. Maybe drop this one down a smidge because it's going to be easier to see through because it's closer to the camera. Good, and then this can be our exit, so we're going to have to put another plane here and then think of a surface for it. So we'll create a new plane. One I'm going to make 2 meters, doesn't really matter a whole lot, and then we can slide this out here. Remember that we're not actually going to be able to see a great deal of this, so we just slide that into position. We know the exact position it needs to be as far as 2 meters across, and it's 3 meters from the edge, so we actually need to set the X translate to -400 and the Z translate to -100, and then that's perfectly in position. Now we can align this a little bit better, and now we just have to choose a shader for that surface. So I'm going to go with some kind of dirt road or something like that. Let's have a look and see if we've got any weeds and gravel. See how that looks. Nope, apparently don't have that one installed. Okay, let's try dirt. Give it a moment, and then we can just find data that's close to what we want. If we haven't got one, we can always search for something else. That's the beauty of it. There's grass, perhaps. Maybe it's a shady nook inside a grassy, meadowy kind of area. this prop looks like. This might actually solve our problem. Well, that might work. But look. No, that's a bit too. That's a set piece, so that's not going to work. Look at this one. We've got different props that we can try and use if you don't want to use a plane. Again, that's a set piece from a set. What this one is. Now, this is probably a bit better. Rather large, but it will. See there, that's just, again, it's too big, too much. See what happens if I come back to that, go into the Surfaces tab and select that, and see if I can. Okay. Plenty of props to choose from, plenty of shaders to choose from. This is just a case of choosing the one that you're happiest with. Fairly simple grass plane, that one, so let's delete that and we can select our grass. Slide it across, we can grab the tool, there we go, and pop that there. Now when we go back to our camera view, we should be able to see. We jump into NVIDIA IRA mode now. Hopefully that scene won't be too big. We can always move it across if we need to. In the X translate, and bring that across so that it's there. As we can see, that's creating a very weird scene. There we go, that's better. So now we've got some semblance of a theme. I would say that the join over there doesn't actually look too bad. It's passable. So I'm going to add a couple more things to this. Let's see if we can find some kind of water fountain. Kind of outdoor water fountain, more importantly. Something that looks like it wouldn't be out of place in a green area. Doesn't actually look too bad, to be fair. We slide this over here so that it's out of the way. Don't know if you have those kind of fountains in outdoor areas really, but it's suspension of disbelief. I might rotate it a little bit so that the tap is at the back. But look, and I would say that looks okay. It's passable. It's passable. And let's see what else. What else kind of thing do we find in this? Leave a newspaper on the bench. There, there's a newspaper. I'm going to come back into texture shaded mode now. Slide that over until it's on the bench. We can leave this camera and go into perspective mode to make that a little bit easier. To be fair, I was being a bit lazy there. Slide this over on top of our bench. Rotate it slightly so that it doesn't look like it's just been put there. Again, it's really just about being believable. Just slide that up. Make that it's actually on the surface. There we go. And for purposes of being able to let somebody sit on the bench at some point, we can get that at one edge as though someone just couldn't be bothered to put it in the trash can. That's fine. And I think I might put a coffee cup or something on the floor. As though someone's just kind of left it there on the floor while they were drinking, again being too lazy to dispose of it. Okay, that's there, so that should appear on the floor. So this is just a simple case of dropping it there. Might add some kind of flowering to this hedgerow as well, just to give it some colour. Go and see what we've got in the flower search for on our content library. And see what comes up really. That looks okay. Dig that out top of there, perhaps. Go for another one, perhaps some purple, some crimson. And I might use the rotate tool just to stick those out in the corner, perhaps. See how that looks from our camera perspective. It should be okay. We're just literally adding a couple of spots of colour into our hedgerow. Yeah, I'm fairly happy with that. I'm gonna go back into NVIDIA iRay preview mode now with nothing selected, just to give us a better idea of how our scene is going to look. These flowers might look absolutely awful. They might be a completely different colour. So if we give it a chance, we'll have a look. And we also need to, at this point, start considering whether the rotation of our... No, actually, that's pretty good. Just a little flash of colour in the plants. I don't like the way the HDRI is casting shadows forwards, and there is a good reason for that. When we create our characters and we put them into the scenes, they are going to cast shadows. We will then have to include those shadows in the icon files for those characters or their avatars in the scene, which can be a bit of a problem. So I'm going to go into my render settings and I'm going to try rotating the HDRI. It may not work, I may have to just suck it up, but I'm going to rotate our HDRI 180 degrees and see what happens. So the light is shining in the opposite direction. Probably, let's have a think. Again, nothing particularly wrong with the background. It's working, but I think it's a harder sell. Let's try going back to 90 degrees and see what that does. Again, it's creating shadows. There's a bit too much dead space in this one. So let's try 270. See what happens. The dead space is gone. The shadows are now over to one side, which is more manageable than having them there. Let's try going for a happy medium then. Let's try going for 315. That's probably a touch more manageable. And there's a shadow now over there, which kind of makes that look a little bit better. Okay, so this is the scene as it is. You're going to want to render this out, or render your scenes out into either 2880 or 1920, depending on if you want to use manual oversampling or not. So make sure that it's 16:9 so that it fits your game window. And once you've done that render, you can move on to the next stage, which we will cover in the next video, which will be cutting out your buttons. Thanks very much for watching that, guys. I hope you found that entertaining. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and I will see you in the next one. But until then, you take damn good care of yourselves, alright? Bye-bye.